everything I've touched is really centered around entertainment and creating memories for people. And whether that was in a movie theater or a bar or an immersive experience, but it really is about creating memories and moments for people to connect.
You're listening to What Fuels You, where we deep dive with CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business leaders to learn more about their stories and uncover nuggets of wisdom we can all use. I'm your host, Shauna Swerland, CEO of Fuel Talent, an award-winning recruiting firm based in Seattle. Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Jennifer Worthington. Jennifer is the co-founder and president of Two Dice, a new live experience company she's building with George Kliavkoff. Jen started her career at Jerry Bruckheimer Films, where she rose to senior vice president at age 23, working on some of the biggest films of that era: Armageddon, The Rock, Black Hawk Down, Pirates of the Caribbean. And then she walked away from Hollywood to open the Coyote Ugly Saloon on the Las Vegas Strip, which became the highest grossing bar per square foot in the country. Since then, she's co-created a children's entertainment franchise with Mark Burnett and Roma Downey, written a book for Assouline, and built Play Social and its playground concept into a multi-city immersive entertainment brand, before recently transitioning to the board to launch her next chapter. Welcome, Jen. I'm so psyched to see you. I miss you.
I'm so happy to be here. We've been far too long.
I know. And it's crazy that we're like the scheduling, but you're like world traveler, and selfishly, I'm just happy to have like this uninterrupted time with you. It's awesome.
Oh, I'm so excited. This will be a fun time.
Fun little convo. Okay. Hitting you with your scary rapid fire. This one's really hard. City or beach?
City for sure. Love the excitement, energy of a city.
I know, you're like, no sleepy time for me. First thing that you do when you wake up, and you got to be real about this.
Okay, well, that's actually an interesting question because I am biphasic. So I have a weird sleeping pattern that I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm up for 2 hours. So I have a sort of a 2 to 4, and then I tend to go back to sleep till around 5:30. So I'm going to answer that question in two parts, which isn't very rapid fiery, but between
okay.
2 and 4, I get a lot of work done. So nobody's bothering me. It's quiet, dark room. So I tend to read a lot of newspapers, and answer emails. And when I get back up around 5 or 5:30, the first thing I do, coffee and Wordle.
Oh, I love a Wordle.
I love a good game when I wake up in the morning.
I'm actually really good at Wordle. What's your first word?
Well, actually, just recently I've been changing words every day, but it's either clear or cleat because you get the R, E, A, and the T.
Yeah, those are good ones. Someone told me ocean, and I'm like, yeah, but O is not going to be the first word.
No,
that's
a dumb.
You know,
that's a
that's
silly.
a dumb one.
You get a lot of vowels out, but you don't need a lot of vowels. I mean, once you knock out the E and the A, it's sort of obvious.
Yeah. Okay. Clear or cleat. Good to know. Wait, the 2 to 4 is giving me anxiety. I don't know if that's healthy.
Actually, it is healthy. In pre-industrial societies, this is how people lived. They had this sort of two-phase of sleeping. So you'd go to sleep for 4 or 5 hours, they'd go hunt, they'd go cook, they'd do lots of things. There was typically a meal in between, and then people would go back to sleep. I mean, obviously,
you're so disciplined. I would be watching TV or eating. I would not be working.
I have no interest in either. I have so much energy at that time that I get into a flow and it's actually probably my most productive time of day.
God, that's so cool. Okay. What's your most recent big splurge?
I love to travel. So I tend to spend my money on experiences, not things right now, which is sort of I think lots of people are doing that right now. So we are planning a big trip this summer, and that is where I'm allocating a significant budget this summer.
Okay, I'm coming with you. I'll be in on that suitcase.
By the way, you're a fun traveler, so I would love for you to come.
Okay, well, then you can answer this. I'm guessing it's not watched, but what have you read, listened to, or watched recently that you find yourself like thinking about or recommending to others?
I am on Telegram 20 hours a day watching what's happening in the Middle East right now. So that is taking up a lot of my mind share. And Telegram, are you on any of these channels on Telegram?
Not on Telegram. I'm on WhatsApp, and I'm on probably 20 different Middle East channels. I'm obviously extremely closely, David's from Iran, and we know lots of Israelis, and just being American. It's crazy, all the different geopolitics and how they impact China and just the future and what that means for Taiwan. And it's
Everything,
fascinating.
absolutely. It impacts everything that's going
Yeah.
on in our world, and so that has been a key source of my time recently.
Yeah, that makes sense. What was your very first concert?
My very first concert, that's a good question. It was something, oh, Jimmy Buffett was my first concert.
Oh, I cannot picture
Yeah,
that, but okay. What are three words that your daughter Allie would use to describe you?
funny, kind, and the hardest working person she knows.
Well, she sounds like I cannot believe I've not met her yet, but she's such a badass. I'm kind of like fangirling, and I want you to talk about her a little bit in the pod, so we'll get into it. But okay, when I was researching you, and I started to tell you this before we started recording, but like I just think of you as a friend. I'm not thinking of your career, but all these words kept coming to the surface as I was researching you for the podcast. And it was like, I'm curious which word resonates more for you. Is it curiosity or is it bravery that has like driven your success?
I think bravery and courage to try things and things that probably I wasn't necessarily qualified for, but to go balls to the wall and try something new. I've had a lot of pivots in my career. So I would
Yes.
say bravery and courage is would be a great word to describe.
Yeah, my career is literally, I'm on year 32 of recruiting. We're now getting into AI consulting. So for the first time, I'm like, have that feeling of discomfort and learning and being challenged. But I cannot imagine having, you've gone deep and wide on so many different, completely different industries, but all of them have the common thread of like being kind of sexy and very much like people facing. And so I'm also guessing alongside the bravery, there's this, you're able to convince people of your idea. So there might be like I don't think of you as being pushy or aggressive. I just think of you as being charismatic. Like you just want to be around it and be like, okay, I'll do what she says.
Oh, that's so nice. No, I'm definitely not pushy. I probably should be pushier. I probably one of my core weaknesses. No, I mean, look, I think everything I've touched is really centered around entertainment and creating memories for people. And whether that was, in a movie theater or a bar or an immersive experience, but it really is about creating creating memories and moments for people to connect. And I think that that's I've been very lucky that I haven't had to sit in a boring office job for the last 30 years. I'm not saying you have a boring office job, but,
Yeah, luckily I
but
don't. Mine's all people and all
yours,
kind
all
of like the
people. Yep.
connection. But
Yep.
I think creating moments for people is especially now when people are just numbing out and this like doom scrolling and like rage bait on the internet and mental health is so challenged. You're really creating such incredible experiences. I can't wait to share it with people, but I want to skip ahead. So tell me about childhood. We both grew up together in Seattle, but for the people who don't know you, talk a little bit about your family of origin and kind of how you were raised.
Yeah, so I grew up in Seattle. I had the most vanilla perfect childhood growing up. Everyone's got trauma in their lives. I'm always like, there's got to be some trauma that I faced, but I really didn't. I had, wonderful parents, wonderful siblings, had an amazing education, played sports, was a tennis player growing up, played soccer. I think that youth sports is so important to teach the skills that we need as adults in terms of failure and grit and working hard. I left Seattle and went to NYU, never went back to Seattle after that. New York was a huge transition from Seattle. I was around people that have different color skin and different nationalities and, coming from different parts of the world. And as you know, NYU is a school that the campus is a city, right? Like you're not going to the University of Washington where you've got this really enclosed environment. It's very broad and it was really formative. I went to film school there. I graduated early because I was so excited to start working and I moved to LA.
Well, how old were you when you thought I want to be in film? And how did you even think to go? Because I grew up with like New York being where my parents went on business trips and I loved New York, but I don't know if I had it in me to like handle New York, especially with there not being like a campus and like you said, the kind of security and safety of a college environment at age 18. And we both grew up kind of sheltered.
Oh no, very sheltered. It's interesting because I knew I wanted to be in the film business. I had done theater as a kid. I mean, that's so embarrassing to say, but I had
No,
done
I
that.
remember. I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
was a little childhood actress but I knew that that probably wasn't going to be how I made my career because I like money and I wanted to be successful. And I thought that the probability of that happening was, 0% probability. So I wanted to be a producer or director. I didn't know. So, and, I wasn't particularly academic growing up. I liked school, but I liked school, for the social aspect more than learning calculus. And I applied to film school alongside some other schools, but USC and NYU Film School. And I got into
Wow.
both. And although I'm not sure how, because in retrospect, my application video was fundamentally flawed. It was just awful. And I got into both
You did
schools.
something right.
I must have, but I think I interviewed well. And I got into both schools, and I knew that I'd probably end up living in LA because obviously the epicenter of the film business. And so I thought I'd give New York a try. Having said that, I didn't know what a
Crazy.
huge transition it would be. And when my parents were leaving me at my dorm the first night, I was hysterically crying, begging them to put me on the plane to go home with them. So it was a
Oh.
tough transition, but I survived.
Did your parents, I guess, instill certain values? Because I know, where are you in the birth order of your siblings? And how many of you are there?
I'm the eldest child. My next sibling is 9 years younger. So I had both the benefit of being an only child alongside the benefit of having siblings sort of more in a maternal way than, growing up together. So it was a very interesting dynamic. We're all very close. All three of us entrepreneurs, which is interesting because my parents were not, but very close family dynamic.
Well, I'm guessing that they just look up to you. It's almost like you're the one who's setting the tone of entrepreneurship and that they're following in your footsteps, even though your parents didn't do that. Did your parents send you a message of like, hey, you're on your own? Like, if you want to go that route, we're not supporting you? Or was there a cushion of like, we've got you if you fail?
Oh, there was no cushion. So we obviously grew up. I did not have a poor upbringing. I had all the sort of benefits of a wonderful childhood. And the day I graduated college, my parents basically said, you're getting a job and there's no more support. So you better work your ass off. I was very deeply upset by that at the time. And obviously it was a transition, right? Because everything had been paid for, college and allowances and clothes and trips and everything I ever needed or wanted. And now I had to hustle and go find a job. And by the way, this is LinkedIn, pre-internet. I was literally writing hundreds of letters on my word processor, like my brother word processor, to every producer, studio, TV house,
Yeah.
everything in Hollywood to try to find
Who
someone that
was
would give me.
guiding you, Jen? Like, who was telling you even what to write, who to write to? Do you have a mentor? Did you have a teacher, a friend of your dad's, like anybody?
No, nobody. There was
Wow.
nobody. I was really driving that train, and I got really, really lucky.
Well, I know you were like working as a personal assistant, which is a great kind of foot in the door, but it doesn't usually happen that, you found yourself in like an executive role early, early, early. I have so many friends in Hollywood who, are still in these kind of support roles.
I was a personal assistant for 10 days. So I wouldn't say that there was a big career around being a PA. Nothing wrong with being a PA, but what happened was that VP of Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer at the time responded to my letter and called me in for an interview. And I went through 3 interviews. I thought I had the job, and he called me and he said, I think you're going to be really bored being my assistant. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pass. And I was devastated. Couple days later, Linda Bruckheimer's assistant called and said, we're hiring a personal assistant for Linda. And by the way, I was desperate for money. I didn't know how, I was eating sandwiches, in my crappy apartment in Brentwood. So I took the job and I started as her PA, a very sort of grueling job, like in my car all day doing returns, not particularly fun. And about 2 weeks later, Lucas called and said, my creative executive just left and I'd like to offer you the job. So I basically skipped all the steps that most people have to do to get to that. Usually that's like a 5 to 7 year process. And he gave me a shot. I was the first person there in the morning. I was the last person to leave. I worked all weekend. I worked all I did was work and it paid off. I was soon promoted to be a VP. They gave me my first movie to produce when I was, 24 years old.
So crazy.
Yeah,
And so were
very
you having
lucky.
like imposter syndrome, or were you like, you know what, I'm learning because I'm working my ass off and I realize I might not have all the background, but I can outwork anyone.
I don't think I had a day at that job where I thought I should be there. Every meeting I was in, everything I did, I felt some level of imposter syndrome. I mean, I was good at
Of
my job,
course.
obviously, but you're
Yeah.
surrounded by sort of these very high level people and celebrities and studio
Well, and
executives.
there's a lot of like ego in that town and a lot of, bullshit that you have to kind of put yourself through. Did you feel like kind of your likability was one of your assets? Like, I can make these people laugh and I can make them comfortable.
I think I probably wasn't that funny back then. I think my humor has evolved over
I
the
think you're
years.
hilarious. I
No, I
was
don't,
just
but I don't.
thinking about our podcast, like we're just going to be laughing our asses off for an
Yeah,
hour.
but I am definitely funny now, but I'm not sure I was funny back then. No, I think that
You're a hard worker.
I was just a hard worker and I had a point of view and I was never scared to share my point of view. Also remember, I was the only woman in any room. I mean, back then, now there's a lot of females, female Hollywood studio executives and producers, but back then there were not a lot of them.
I'm
Um,
sure.
yeah, Dawn Steele was sort of the prototype of a female executive, and ball buster, ass shouldn't say that, but asshole. And I was
Yeah.
taking a very different position. I very much have one of the guy energy, as you know. I like dirty jokes. I'm not offended by anything. So I sort of took that tactic
Honestly,
and
as a woman, I 100% am the same. I'm like, I don't know if it's because I have a brother who's 15 months older. I was always around dudes, but I'm super comfortable being one of the guys. And I do think that that can be a superpower as a woman.
oh, I love it.
You just kind of can roll and they can be authentically themselves and you're not easily offended, but you're also a girl's girl and you can roll with the ladies and like
Yeah.
hang. Okay, tell me about Remember the Titans. I read that you kind of fought for that script and paid very little money. And like, how did you have the gut instinct and how did you convince them to take that on?
Right. Well, one of my jobs was early on was, I would read scripts, right? Read scripts, read books, any sort of content or media that was coming out and make recommendations if we should take it to Disney. That's who our deal was with at the time. This story came across my desk for Remember the Titans, and it was a beautiful, beautiful story. Everybody in Hollywood had passed. We took it to Disney. They passed. They didn't think it was commercial enough. And we had a fund it was called a discretionary fund. So we could use that. It wasn't a lot of money, but for passion projects that studio didn't believe in, we had the ability to do that. And I took the project to Jerry Bruckheimer, and it was not. I think we bought it for $12,000. It was nothing, and we developed that movie, and it turned into. I'll tell you that Remember the Titans is one of these movies that everybody I talk to that knows that I worked there. That's one of the movies they bring up. It was this tiny little engine. It was emotional. It was powerful, and it's one of the movies I'm most proud of working on.
You should be. And so, most people would never leave that type of opportunity. Why did you even consider leaving that industry, that job, that team when you were just crushing it?
Well, I was on a very serious trajectory there. At the time, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer were splitting up, and I was going to run Don's company and produce for him. And he died, unfortunately, very unexpectedly. And so I decided to stay with Jerry. Jerry was gracious enough to say, I don't want you out of our fold, so please stay with me. And I did. I got pregnant while I was working on producing Coyote Ugly, and I hid my pregnancy from everybody. Luckily, I didn't gain weight until very, very late. So I wore a lot of
Oh my
baggy
God.
clothes on that
Opposite of me.
set.
I'm 80, and 90 pounds. Like 20
No,
pounds, little baby basketball. Like, screw
I was
you.
6 months pregnant, pretending to do fake shots while we were shooting the movie because, of course, I didn't want anyone to know. I was worried that I'd be taken off the movie. We were shooting in New York, and it was, a big opportunity for me. So I had my baby. I was on maternity leave. I was literally maternity leave, I say in quotation marks, because, I'm on conference calls from my house. My baby's crying. I'm putting her in the bathroom, turning on the shower water to drown out her cries. So people didn't know. Because again, I'm the only woman. So people couldn't hear her crying, pretending like I'm in an office. I'm getting on planes. And the final straw for me really came when I was rushing into a meeting with my daughter. Oh, she was sitting, she was maybe 3 or 4 months old, and I was meeting Carrie Fisher. We brought Carrie in for some rewrites on Coyote, and I slipped on the floor and dropped my daughter on her head. And
Oh,
and yeah, ambulance came, the whole thing, and I went and I sat in that emergency room, and I'm like, there is no way I can do this job because being a film producer is a 14, 15 hour a day 7 day a week job, and trying to be a good mother. I just dropped my daughter on her head because I was rushing in for a meeting. I just didn't think I could do everything.
So were you ever considering even for half a second, like, okay, I can't do this, but was ever a consideration to just be a stay-at-home mom?
Well, here's what happened. So when I gave my notice and said I was leaving, they were like, "We can make this work. You can work part time." And I did consider that, but I'm like, that's so not my mentality to be part time. I'm going to be watching everyone else around me crossing a finish line that I'm going to be, not able to meet. And I just was like, it's just not who I am. Maybe I should take some time and be a stay at home mom. My husband at the time was living in Las Vegas working as a real estate developer. And I was like, instead of commuting, I'm just going to move to Vegas and be a mother. And that was awesome for a week. And then I was literally losing my mind. I am like changing diapers, watching Oprah. Like, what did I do with my life? And, in Vegas, you're like grocery shopping and there's strippers coming off shift. And I'm
Yeah.
like looking around and I'm like, what the fuck did I just do? So I
Yeah.
started having a complete mental breakdown about like, I just moved to Vegas. I'm a stay at home mom. This is just so not who I am.
Nothing
Uh,
sexy about all this. Yeah.
nothing sexy. And by the way, I love my daughter, but I am not, a baby mother. Like having them like stare at you and cry was not my core strength. And so I was in gymboree class with my daughter, and I met a girl who looked as miserable as I was. And she's like, I just moved here. I was head of international marketing for Disney, and I'm now stay at home mom in Las Vegas. And I'm like, oh my God. And it was sort of a kindred spirit. And we started chatting, and Coyote Ugly was coming out 8 months later. And I was like, I should just open up this bar here. I've never been in the bar business. I've never been a waitress. I have no idea how to do hospitality, but I know that Disney's got a $30 million marketing campaign coming out in 8 months. I should go open this bar. And she said, well, my husband's been in this business before, so you should talk to him. And we went out and started pitching all the casinos in Las Vegas. And back then it's very different than it was now. It was very relationship handshake driven at the time. And we had a hotel president called Felix Rappaport, who I had made a horrible VHS sizzle reel of what we thought the bar could be. It was terrible. And he's like, I love it. I'm going to give you a shitty piece of real estate in New York, New York, and like, see if you can make it work. And we opened the bar 3 weeks after 9/11, which was suboptimal, right? Because nobody was traveling and no one was getting on planes. But we became within a week the highest grossing bar per square foot in the country. On our opening weekend, there was so much cash that we were shoving the cash in our shirts and running it to the trunk of our cars because all of our safes were full and we had no place to put it. So it was one of these crazy success stories.
You
I mean,
can't write
like,
this. I think we should write a movie or a book about your life. Like, what the hell? That's
it was like
crazy.
a lightning, just one of these like moments that just never happens again. But it was just an amazing time. And by the way, had no idea what I was doing. We brought in another partner who had a lot of hospitality experience, and thank God, because he taught us what to do. And it was just an amazing ride for Coyote Ugly. And by the way, 20 years later, that bar is still doing, I don't own it anymore, but enormous business for MGM. So it was a great success
So
story.
you have this meeting with the husband of the Gymboree lady. He kind of knows what's up. He gives you this shit. They give you this like shitty space. Within a week, you're, printing cash. Who are you calling to be like, oh fuck, I don't know what to do? Or like, what are your first hires? And when you don't know how to run a bar, are there metrics you're looking at? Are you just thinking, I want a certain type of DNA of human to hire? Like, what are the key things that you're like are the North Star of that business?
Well, that's a great question. So first off, it was really important to me to create a very immersive and experiential environment. That was before immersive and experiential were buzzwords, right? Like we didn't call it that because like nobody used those words, but I wanted to create the movie set. So because I said, if I'm coming to Vegas and I want something different to do, and I've just seen this movie, my God, let's give them that place to go. And the interesting thing, and this was pre-Instagram, was that bar gave people their 15 minutes of fame. So they came to Vegas, they got to do something they could do nowhere else. And it didn't matter if they were skinny, fat, young, old. We had everybody getting up on that bar. And for those women, there was 5 minutes of people they thought they were a celebrity.
They
And
just
the
felt
people,
free and they felt hot And
It was
yeah,
their 15 minutes of fame, and it was like sexy. And the girls, the bartenders that I hired were all beautiful and hot. But the most important thing for me was that they were cool, that the the women customers that came in would want to be friends with them. The men wanted to date them, and the women wanted to be friends with them. So it was a very fine line of being sexy while still appealing to women, if that makes sense. And I think that
yeah.
that
Oh,
was the most
totally.
important because most of my customers were women, actually.
And it is all, I mean, it really is, it does represent so much around female empowerment, less around like the seduction of the conquering that men are
That's
there to do. But
exactly.
it's more the women to be like girls' trips, bachelorette parties, like let's just let it rip and be free. Like almost like how women feel when they're in a gay bar. Like I just want to be with my people and my girls.
That's exactly right. And they felt hot. I mean, it didn't matter what they looked like. They were the hottest women in Las Vegas for those five
That's
minutes.
crazy. So who are some of your key hires there as far as like, you get that little gem, like the lead waitress who's just like the little mini Jen Worthington. That's like I see talent in her.
Well, there's some of the women that I hired that are still there 20 years later, if that's not,
What?
yeah. Well, think back then, I want you to think about this. So 20 years ago, those girls were making $160,000 a year as bartenders. So you've union labor, so they've got an amazing base salary, but the tips are just off the charts because people are so happy and like they're in such a good mood. So they just
Yeah.
showered so it's a great job for somebody and they've stuck
Yeah.
around.
So
They've aged
crazy.
a little bit,
Well,
but
I'm sure like maybe a little Botox here and there, a little
or
makeup. Maybe they're
so
wearing
a little
sunglasses
filler.
to work. You never know what you got to do. That's so
Yeah.
funny. But I mean, most people, again, now you're not having Allie. There's no reason to leave. You could have just like thrown the cash in your bag and gone and played mahjong and played tennis and been thrilled. Like, why disrupt that and go pursue something new after that?
Well, I think for me, it's a high. I love working.
I think so. I'm thinking like that phase of, I don't think it's just I like working. I think your sweet spot, I don't know this for a fact, but my guess is your sweet spot is those initial startup-y kind of putting the deal together. And if it gets too kind of established, then you're like, now what? I'm bored.
I have undiagnosed ADD or ADHD or all of the above that
Yeah.
I love that 0 to 1 stage. And I think that that is my core strength, right? It's the creative ideation, the creative execution, getting a concept to the point where customers are interacting with it. The long-term operations, I can do it. I'm very good at it. But when you start getting calls at 11 at night that your toilet's overflowing or that,
You're like, I don't
you
give a
know,
shit.
or that your staff member has her cramps and she doesn't want to come in and it is not what I want to be spending my time
Yeah.
doing.
Was that a good financial outcome for you?
Big time. Yeah. Very, very good.
Because
And
you owned a lot of the equity in the business. And so
that's
somebody
right.
had to buy you out. And the same thing with the film, and I guess film industry, you're not really owning equity, you're more just like a hired
No,
gun.
I had a very hefty salary for my age, but no, I mean, look, when you're founding something and it does well, my exit, I was making a lot of money during the Coyote Ugly days and when I left. So
Yeah. And so what was next for Jen Worthington after that?
So I opened up a handful more concepts on the Las Vegas Strip across all the casinos, some really small, some sort of larger scale. I ended up selling that business to my partners and I started putting together a concept that raising, a lot of money for a concept that I was opening in New York in Times Square. That was a labor of love. I think that had I opened that concept 10 years later, it would have done a lot better. It did okay, but it wasn't sort of a huge success.
What was the concept?
It was called Spotlight Live. It was before American Idol. And we took this huge space in Times Square. We had billboards. Comcast was an investor. So we had a channel on Comcast. And it was karaoke on steroids. We put you up on the stage with backup dancers, backup singers, a band, and you got to burn your own CDs. We had a deal with Sony Records. So somebody actually won a record deal with
I
them.
think that seems like a no-brainer slam dunk. Why did it not crush it?
In retrospect, I think the space was too big. I think we shouldn't have done it in Times Square. And I think we were 5 years too early. So it just never totally worked. And by the way, I wish I hadn't done it in New York. I wish I had done that in Vegas. I wish I had done that anywhere else but New York. It was a very mass concept. You know, the thing about Times Square is people want to go to Red Lobster and McDonald's. They want to go to very familiar brands,
The
right? Like
M&M
that's
store.
exactly. They want to go somewhere they've seen in their hometown, and because that's familiar and it's safe. And I just think it was not the right location for us. So we were doing okay. We were paying the bills, but nobody was getting rich off of that concept. And then I had something pretty terrible happen, which is my one of my employees murdered a customer on my roof. So yeah, you can imagine the fallout from that. So
This
that
is the
was
first
a
I'm hearing of this. I'm kind of speechless. Like, whoa.
yeah, I mean, just even bring I never talk about this. Have chills just even talking about it. I was sitting in my office. I shared an office with my brother who was working with me at the time, and we had three floors of that concept, and we had buyouts on all three. So we were having the air conditioning checked because it was July and it was always going out. And the AC people went to the roof and found her body. And it was, you know, then I all of a sudden started living a Law and Order episode, and it was awful and traumatizing, and it shut me down for a solid period of time. I mean, I was
I'm
just
sure.
scared of my own shadow. I lost confidence in knowing what I was doing and execution and operations, and it was a huge setback for me emotionally, obviously.
Oh, I'm sure. What point are you in your mothering at this point? How old's Allie? Where are you in your marriage? How'd you choose
I
New
would
York?
I was divorced, and but I am best friends with my ex-husband. You know, we're very, very close and had an amazing still continue to this day, have an amazing co-parenting relationship. Allie was primarily in Vegas, and I was sort of back and forth between New York and Vegas, which is where my, you know, my personal life was, because Vegas is a tough place to have a personal life.
What's crazy, Jen, is I haven't even talked to you about this, but like with all the new tax laws in Washington State, people are leaving and a lot of people are moving to Vegas. Like a lot of
I,
people
th-
are moving to Nevada from here.
I think a lot of people are fake moving to Nevada.
Well,
You know.
probably fake moving, but Nevada's, my point is like it could be anywhere. And it's oftentimes Nevada, which I've been surprised to see. So
Well,
that's a whole other thing.
I think it's close to Washington, close to California, so it's easy in and out. But yes, no, I mean that's what the real estate in Vegas is not being hit at all because of that. People are coming and establishing residency there. Look, it's a great place to live. I had an amazing run there, but it was not where I wanted to be as a single woman, if that makes sense.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
go into any more detail around that, but just not my kind
Yeah.
of people that I
Yeah.
wanted to date.
So that
So
period's in New York. And then, but you've also then, I mean, I don't know where I am in this whole story of yours, because then I know that you built this whole huge concept in Vegas. And so it's like, it's kind of this whole story of like, it's Vegas, it's LA, it's New York. And then it seems like it's New York, Vegas.
my next step is very strange. So one of the people I admire most in the world is a guy called Rob Wiesenthal. He was a Sony executive. I think he was a CFO of Sony Americas, and now he started a company called Blade. But he is sort of a mentor and a sounding board. And I was in a very dark place emotionally and didn't know what I was going to do next. And he started ideating ideas, and we started talking about entertainment. I'm like, I don't want to be operating anymore. I never want to touch alcohol again. I don't want to be in an environment where anything like this could ever happen again. And I ultimately started a Christian children's entertainment company. There was and is, less so now, a hole in Christian entertainment. You know, there's a huge swath of the population that doesn't want to go see, you know, big action movies, and they want wholesome family programming. There wasn't an established family brand for little kids. So I developed a concept. I mean, if anybody that knows me thinks this is the funniest story because of who I am, but okay. So I started this company called Little Angels, and again, the importance of relationships. It was nothing. I developed some characters. I put a deck together. I put together a crappy little sizzle reel. And a guy called George Kliavkoff, who, by the way, is now my business partner after all these years. We were having a drink. We'd been introduced during the Spotlight days. He was the first chief digital officer of NBC. And we were having drinks. He's like, "What are you up to?" And he said, he's now president of Hearst. And he said, "I love what you're doing. We've got a big Christian initiative. Let me bring you in to meet Mark Burnett and Roma Downey, because we're producing the Bible." And Hearst bought my company. And I mean, they bought like sketches on a piece of, you know, on a paper. So And Roma, Downey, and I set out to build this brand called Little Angels, and we ended up doing, home video, digital games, books, plush, toys, everything. And it was an amazing period of that's over cocktails. I've got some great stories. I'm not going to share them publicly,
But that was successful, right?
very successful. So yeah, that was a wonderful period in my life.
Honestly, like the only reason why I'm laughing is because, I like the idea of wholesome also. Like to just be able to just, especially right now, the world feels so dark that it's like anything with light. I'm like, I want to walk toward it. It doesn't matter if it's religious, not religious. I just want light.
This was a little past wholesome. It was very religious. This
Oh,
was,
okay. That's different.
th-
Yeah.
yeah, this was wholesome plus. This was like, you're not my audience for this. Let's just put
Wholesome
it.
adjacent. It's like double wholesome.
It was definitely wholesome, but like it was definitely very Christian. So I sold it to Hearst and I worked at Hearst for some period of time. And then Scott Sassa, who I worked very closely with, he was running all of entertainment for Hearst, left Hearst. And I loved working with him. And one of the people that replaced him wasn't my cup of tea. And I'm a big life is too short person as I look at steps in my career, and I left and decided that life was too short. So, and that's when I started my
Yeah.
concept, Play Social, started developing, I saw what was happening in the live entertainment space relating to immersive and experiential activities and how customers were interacting with those. And I sold that concept to MGM and built that at the Luxor Hotel. And we opened 3 years ago.
Well, what I loved about this story, and I'm dying, I want to go visit, but I kind of want to go with you, even though it's like not your thing right now. I just want to go to any of these things because this is my jam. Like when I'm at like the bar and bat mitzvahs or the big parties and the adults are in one room and I read that like the kids are in another, I want to be in the kids section. I want to
Me
be,
too. That's where I came up with
I don't
this.
like to stand around at a bar and drink and like make small talk. And I find that not energizing. But if I look over and someone's playing, what's the game I'm really good at? I feel like I'm really good at where you toss the sack into the thing. Like I
Cornhole.
like games.
But that's
Cornhole.
so boring.
I want to play
That's boring.
cornhole. I want to play pickleball and ping pong and tennis. I like to move my body and be competitive and laugh, especially now when you look at these things and kids are just on their screens and adults. I'm like,
That's
I
right.
can't be in an elevator. Like half of my life and all the relationships I've made are because they happened before the technology was there. Like luckily in my 20s and 30s, our 20s and 30s, there wasn't really iPhones. And so I'm like, I met this one on a, elevator going to the airport. Like these things used to happen.
You know that 50% of men claim they don't have a single friend. Okay, so think about that. 70% of men by the age of 25 have not asked a woman out on a date.
Oh,
So
it's just so
these
painful.
these synthetic relationships with our phones, right? Because we think we're connecting with people by scrolling. By the way, I love Instagram. I'm not bashing social
Yeah, of
media.
course.
And by the way, I'm a huge I love TikTok. But people think they have these connections with people because I've seen your kids
Yeah.
grow up and go off to
I
school.
think
And
our generation has the benefit.
that's right.
We have the benefit of having both. So like when I talk about our childhoods, my kids are so jealous. They're like, wait, what? So you would just be out all day and then your parents would be like, okay, come home at 8 or whatever. And we would ride our bikes and play in the forest and play, Trump. And you're physically just moving and talking and getting, being mysterious.
By the way, we're lucky we weren't murdered as children. I mean, we would go out and like
Or in
come
our
back
20s,
12
like
hours
think of the
later.
traveling.
Yeah,
100%. But that
I
wasn't
know.
around back then. It was literally the big thing was like, if a guy offers you to show you his puppies and offers you candy, don't get in the van. That was like our
Yeah,
one, don't get
the
in that
van.
van. The big
By the way,
van was the thing.
if you're a murderer or kidnapper, wouldn't you just get a sedan? Because like if you knew not to show up with the van, right?
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
like vans need not apply. That's
yeah,
so
do not
funny.
show up with your van to
Okay, so you
kidnap
did this
people.
whole, it's 14,000 square feet. It's this huge investment. I remember when this was happening for you, and it's crazy that you were able to pull it off. But tell me about it. Tell me about the first kind of couple weeks into the first year, what that was like.
Yeah, so I raised a lot of money from an investor from Seattle, by the way, who I didn't know from Seattle, named Eric Anderson, who's this amazing guy who founded Topgolf
West River
and
Group?
West River Group. And he took a flyer on this crazy concept again. I just recently looked at the deck that we sold that investment off of, and boy, was that not good. thank God for Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT now, because my decks are so freaking good now.
Yeah. You know what's really good is Notebook LM for that kind of thing.
Oh, really?
So
I haven't used that one
it's
yet.
just it's more kind of pretty. But anyway.
Yeah. So they wrote us a big check, and we set out to create an experience for adults. We now allow teenagers to come in because there was so much demand for it, but we set out to create an
Of
experience.
course, like I don't want to have to be 21.
That's
People are getting
right.
fake IDs to come to your.
Well, those kids have like outgrown the family entertainment centers or the trampoline parks. It's like, where do they go also to have fun? And by the way, the parents love it because it encourages social interaction with the parents and the kids and creates these lasting memories for them. But the idea really was that we were creating games and environments where people would laugh with and at each other, because that's a bonding
Yeah.
moment. And then also this sort of light competitive entertainment where all of our games except for one are built for multiple people. So you're creating stronger bonds with the people you come with, right? We encourage everyone to do high fives and scream and laugh, and then also meet people. Since Vegas opened, we've had 7 engagements of people that have met in the space, as
That's
opposed to small
insane,
talk.
Jen.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So it's no VR, no screens, no video
No AR,
games.
VR, no arcade games. It is large scale tactile games, as if you've been dropped into a game show, but you're in a bar, although you don't have to drink. This experience is equally fun to be sober. And actually, we're getting a lot of feedback from people who are saying, like, we never wanted to go out with their friends that were drinking anymore, because, like, it's super not fun to go to a bar while my friends are getting drunk. And so, but this has allowed an environment for those people to all still have a great time together.
Walk me through the business model. So how much does it cost for somebody to go in? How many people can it fit? What is the typical use case? Is it a group of friends who are in Vegas? Is it like a couple that's going in?
All of the above. We've had everything through a funeral, by the way. So we even have dead. I say that as a joke, but it's not. We did have a few. Someone bought us out for a funeral. So typically, it's date nights. It's single people coming in trying to meet people. Lots of groups. It starts at $37. We have VIP packages. Typical experience is 60 to 90 minutes, and you're playing for points. You're playing games for points and prizes, and we have loud popping music. So
And you're not wearing Vegas clothes because you need to be like able to kind of move,
no, and
get
it's
sweaty.
also
Are
an
you in like
instead of the
sneakers and shorts?
yeah, you can wear anything. It's a before dinner, after dinner, instead of a club, instead of our traditional bar environment. So a lot of people don't want to go out at 1 o'clock in the morning and stand in a 2-hour line and pay $500 for a table. But we're giving you the music.
Yeah.
People are dancing. People are playing games, and it's just a really fun environment.
It's so cool. Was it the right partnership, the right location? Like, is there anything that you would change if you had to look back, like the learnings?
Everything, right? It's the first time you do a concept. I mean, not everything. That's an exaggeration, but look, some of our games aren't that fun, right? So, on our location too, we were able to fix all of those things. It's interesting when you start you have all these great ideas and creative ideas, and then you see actual customers touching, feeling, playing, interacting with, and you realize like what doesn't land. So, like any first concept, a lot of iteration, and we fixed all of that for location number 2. I'd say
And
that
what's location number 2?
we opened Nashville last year, which has been an amazing success. I don't think we appreciated how much corporate event business we would be getting. Nashville, we've had huge success in events because, again, people are looking for an alternative to standing around with past hors d'oeuvres and like awkward conversation and bad box wine. So this way, people are actually able to get to know each other and actually
Yeah.
play games and like really have a bonding experience.
I think it would do well in Seattle, to be honest.
It will do well everywhere.
It seems like it.
We brought in a CEO who's amazing, who, came from Merlin Entertainment and Legoland. And that's his mandate, is to roll out the concept across America and beyond.
Well, it'd be incredible. Are you going to never turn it into a franchise? It's still going to be like fully owned and you guys will run
For
it.
now.
And you took a board seat and he's now the CEO.
That's right.
Will you stay involved?
It's my baby. All right. I developed this concept. I worked on it for 5 years. I'm trying very hard to not be involved on a day-to-day basis. But, I think every concept is good to have fresh blood come in and figure out a new, what's working, what's not working, without sort of the passion of the founder, right? Because we have laser focus on what we've done. And I think that, I will not be involved in a day-to-day basis.
And what did you have a board when you were running it? or
I
you
did.
brought in this board. Okay. And how do you like working with a board? Like, what do you see as the role of a board?
My board was extremely supportive, deep bench in hospitality, immersive entertainment, rollout, building and scaling concepts like this. So I had a wonderful board, supportive board, and I got really lucky. So I can't complain.
I started to tell you about this, AI stuff that we're building out, and it's gonna be more of a tech company kind of spin out. But it's interesting because I've never taken outside capital. It seems really scary to me to take somebody's money, even if it's venture, institutional money. How do you deal with that? Like being a person who wants to make other people happy and do the right thing, you've had kind of massive success, but how do you choose the right board? How do you choose the right investors? Has that been easy? Has it been hard as a woman? I'm so curious because I feel intimidated by that.
Yeah, I'd say that it's hard, and the investor investee relationship is hard no matter how you slice it, even in good times, right? I mean, there's always a push pull. I've been generally lucky in my career, and my partner in my new venture and I had a very clear. We had a conversation. We were starting this company, and we have a very clear no asphalt policy on what we're doing next. And we're willing to turn down business, we're willing to turn down opportunity, but we just at this phase in our life don't want to have that in our world. And the problem is, as I mean, the dynamic obviously always starts super positively, and then it doesn't always end that way. So look, it's difficult.
Yeah.
As you said, I would say I'm a people pleaser, but not at the expense of my own what I need to accomplish. And so, yeah, I've for sure had some tough situations, which I probably will not talk about.
Yeah. Well, I think it can just be super challenging. And then the question is just, I haven't had any business partners ever. And I think when you're talking about these people that you've partnered with, I have in my head what that would look like for me. Like, would I need to almost not a prenup, but like how they have people in Catholic religion go through premarital counseling. Like, let's talk about the core things that matter, money, sex, how we're going to raise our kids, like the
That's right.
equivalent in business. Like, do you have those
Yeah.
conversations up front? And are you comfortable in those uncomfortable conversations?
I had some very difficult conversations with my last business partner, and it was a tough dynamic, which is why when I set out to build my new company, when I sat down with my new partner, we had very open conversations, and we had
Yeah.
that. We left out the sex part of that, but
Yeah.
basically everything else,
Everything else.
and
Yeah.
everything else, because I was never going to put myself in that situation again. And
Yeah.
so, we have two very complementary skill sets, right? We are each laser focused on what we each are very good at. We have some overlap, but we also have a brutally honest relationship with each other. And that is good for us. That's not good for everybody, but that's just,
Yeah.
I'm a very straightforward person.
I think brutal honesty is everything. One of the other things I've seen kind of interfere with strong partnerships can be your relationship with money and kind of what's enough, and then also your relationship with work ethic. Like,
That's
hey,
right.
and I'm busting my over here, while you're like whatever. So that also seems like an important conversation to address out of the gate. So tell me about this new chapter, this new concept. I know you can't really get into it too much, but give us a little nugget just to whet our appetite.
Yeah, I am so excited of all the projects I've done in my entire career. I've never been more excited about. So we launched a company called Two Dice. My partner was president of Hearst, president of MGM Entertainment, a guy with sort of a deep history in media, digital media. And we have launched a live events company focused on live events around people's passions, primarily music, sports, and culture, really taking the 3-day event model. Some will be annual tentpole, some will be traveling, and localized in many cities over the course of the year. And we're really trying to harness people's fandom moments and bring people together as a community. And it's a very interesting model, right? It's got multiple revenue streams. You've got ticket sales, you've got immersive exhibitions and experiences, you've got marketplace, sponsorship. So it's a really interesting financial model, but it's also just fun. We're working on extremely fun genres and projects and cities and partners. There's a huge media angle to what we're doing. We're creating a ton of content off the floor of our conventions. And we've got the first 4 projects that we're launching are all things that people are incredibly passionate about, and there's no place for them to gather.
I literally cannot wait. I'm so excited. So how are you funding this?
So we are in the process. We're raising a little bit of money, but we don't need to. We're raising strategic capital right now. But the nice thing about this business model is you go on sale long before the event. So the ticket sales, we've put a little money in, and then the ticket sales primarily fund the actual convention.
Interesting. Do you think that, I mean, I know that you and I have always talked about work, and you've kind of implied like, I will be working until I die. Like, what else am I going to do? Do you see this as one of your final, like you've said, this is the most fun and the most excited I've been until you aren't, until it's like fully established and running? And then will it be like, I'm up at 2 a.m. thinking of my new idea? Or do you think that you're like, oh, this is like, I've arrived?
Well, the thing is that we'll be launching new verticals, right? There's new fandom communities. So for me, my creative juices, well, it's infinite, right? Like
Yeah, well,
we're gonna
you
be able
can
to
be
keep.
like an entrepreneur within it.
Exactly. So yeah, I think this is going to be, I mean, I think this is going to be my focus in the next decade. I can't imagine doing something else right now. And I think this is such a contra play to AI and digital and the screens, and how much we all have no social connectivity anymore. People don't go to church, that people don't go to the YMCA. There's no local gathering spot for community anymore. And I think people are desperate for community.
Desperate. I completely agree. Globally, it's not just a US issue. I think it's everywhere. Yeah, no. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
What are you doing when you're not like crazy girl working? I know you're playing your tennis.
I love my tennis. Very good club player. I love playing backgammon. I love tennis. I love being with my family. I think all my free time, my daughter is a very high level in her sport, so I like watching her events. So there's a lot of travel involved in that.
Tell us, you got to say more. You can't be like all kind of on the down low about that because Allie's a badass. Give her like a little more shout out because I'm blown away. Like I think I follow her on her Instagram. She's so badass and she's gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. She is a international Grand Prix show jumper. So she represented the United States last year, in Canada at a Nations Cup, but she rides at all the international competitions, in Europe and the US, and represents the United States. So she, by the way, also has a full-time job and career at a ed tech company called Primer Micro Schools, where she is GM for the state of Florida and oversees 17 schools and a P&L and, a lobbying and real estate portfolio. And so, she's effectively has 2 serious careers, and she works also 7 days a week, 15 hours a day doing both. But I'm very proud of her. I think generationally, our daughters, and my daughter's a little older than yours, but they don't see a glass ceiling, right? I always ask her, like, is it weird to be a woman in these environments? They don't even look at that anymore in a way that we
She's kind of looking
did.
at you like, what are you talking about? Well, it's
Yeah,
the
like
same thing as like kids being like, oh, my friend's transgender, or my friend in 4th grade just came out to me, and I'm like, wow, how brave. Like that's
yeah. And they're like,
incredible.
what?
And they're like, huh? Like, what, why is
It's
that
so true.
brave? That's just a fact. It's so crazy. Okay, so Jen, my final question for you, as you know, is what fuels you?
That's a great question. I think family. I think I do everything in service of my family to make my family proud. I want to do good in the world. I want to bring people happiness. I think that's what I love about doing live events, whether that's a permanent installation or something less permanent. But I think if I can put a smile on somebody's face, take them out of their everyday lives of paying their bills and feeding the dog and the cat and fighting with their husbands, and for 90 minutes, give them something that makes them happy, I've succeeded.
That's incredible. Well, I can't wait for our listeners to get a chance to get exposure to you and your insanely cool, badass career, but also how can they learn more and when do you think ish they'll be able to experience any of these businesses that you think they would enjoy?
We're going to announce in about a month. So the company's called Two Dice, and keep your eyes open.
Oh, I'm going to be like stalking you. Like, where are we going?
Well,
What are we doing? I love all of
you're
it.
coming to all of them.
I can't wait. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I bought my ticket. I'm in.
Okay, good.
Okay, great to see you, honey. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the What Fuels You podcast. If you'd like to check out past episodes to hear from more business leaders, go to fueltalent.com/podcast. And if you have a minute, please leave a review and rating on your favorite podcast app, or share this episode with a friend or colleague. Please share any feedback or interview suggestions for other guests by sending a message to podcast@fueltalent.com. I'm Shauna Swerland, and thanks again for listening.